Hello and welcome everyone to Overcoming Seldom Discussed but Essential to Know Raw Food Pitfalls. We're super excited to share with you today some little known yet important information on pitfalls as well as mindsets that can mean the difference between reaching your health goals with raw food or falling short of them. We want all of you to be as successful as possible, and we know that breaking down the hurdles of misinformation can help you accomplish that. For those of you who don't know us yet, I'm Dr. Rick Dina, and you'll be hearing from Dr. Karen Dina in just a few minutes. We're both chiropractic physicians with a strong interest in plant-based and raw food nutrition, as well as the functional medicine approach to health. We're board certified and licensed in the state of California. After I graduated from chiropractic school, I came out here to Northern California and spent 4 years on staff at True North Health Center, where I was involved in the supervision of water fasting patients in a medically supervised environment. Dr. Karen did a summer internship at True North when she was earning her doctorate degree. Fast forwarding a few years, we are the developers of the Science of Raw Food Nutrition curriculum that we taught in person for 10 years at a raw culinary school in Northern California. We're also the authors of the Raw Food Nutrition Handbook. We're also the hosts of the Raw for Life Summit 2016 and the International Raw Food Summit 2017. From this background and from speaking for many, many years at different conferences and events, we have become known for our thoroughness and scientific accuracy, our ability to make complex subjects easy to understand, and our encouraging approach that takes unnecessary hurdles out of the way of people pursuing better health. You'll get a tiny sliver, a tiny taste of each of those in today's webinar, where we'll break through some misunderstandings about raw food nutrition that can get in the way of people being successful in their quest for better health. When Dr. Karen and I got started on our raw food journeys over 27 and 30 years ago, respectively, there were far fewer resources available than there are today. Due to the internet, access to information about raw food nutrition is easier than ever before, and there's more of it than ever before. But is the internet really the best place to find accurate, useful information on raw food that will sustain your maximum health over the long term, hopefully for a lifetime? I know when I go to various Facebook groups about raw food, watch the YouTube videos, read tweets, etc., on the one hand, I see that there's lots of good information out there, but on the other hand, I see that there is an enormous amount of inaccurate information as well. And it's at those times when I make the connection and realize why so many people who start out on a vegan or a raw food path don't keep up with it over the long term. So many of our students and our patients have also told us that they've tried to figure things out by this method and they're really confused as well. We are committed to helping as many of you as we can take the healthiest, most effective approach possible, supporting you in your pursuit of optimal health. And having said that, there is a certain realm of optimal health, but within that realm, there's plenty of room for individual variation. So this can help you find the approach that works best for you individually, all things considered. I'll leave you with a quote from a former student of ours who took our Science of Raw Food Nutrition curriculum, which is the precursor to our expanded and updated Mastering Raw Food Nutrition online curriculum that we'll tell you more about after hearing Dr. Karen share some valuable information about nutrient absorption and if we really need to cook our food to obtain and absorb important nutrients. So Denise from Alberta, Canada says, "There isn't a better course available designed to arm anyone desiring to improve the health of themselves and others, allowing them to weed through news reports, marketing, and research. Add on top of that a balanced, open approach, presented in an inspiring yet modest manner. So she's saying we're not out there making outrageous claims. I believe that's what she meant by our modest manner. But the inspiring part is that when you have accurate information, you can see how incredible a plant-based and better yet a raw food diet can actually be and how much of a difference it can make in your health. We now have a new, improved, expanded, and updated online version of our previous curriculum, as you can see here, called Mastering Raw Food Nutrition. And now it's easier to access this than ever before on your own schedule without having to leave home and be far away from your family and your job, and without having to pay for travel and lodging, while actually getting more direct interaction with us than our in-person students like Denise did. We'll talk more about this at the end of the webinar for those of you who would like to continue your education about raw food nutrition. One last piece of information before we begin. The information and opinions expressed by us in this webinar are not intended to be used as medical advice and should not be used to diagnose or treat any medical condition or as a substitute for individual health care. This webinar is presented for education only and with the understanding that we are not liable for misconception, misuse, or adverse effects resulting from its use. Any type of dietary change, nutritional therapy, or fasting should always be undertaken with the supervision of a qualified healthcare practitioner. Now, we may end up being those healthcare practitioners for some of you, but watching this webinar does not establish a doctor-patient relationship between us and you. The menu plans in this webinar are for comparison purposes only. Sometimes people think that because we take a look or examine a particular diet that we're advocating that. We're not doing that here. Well, some we are and some we aren't, but just know that some of the diets are there for comparison purposes only. Having said that, I'll now turn things over to Dr. Karen, who will get us started in how to overcome some key raw food pitfalls.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Karen Dina. And in this section, we'll talk about seldom discussed but essential to know raw food pitfalls and how to overcome them. So to get started, pitfall number 1 is discounting important information on mineral absorption, or not knowing important information on mineral absorption. When I started my raw food journey over 27 years ago, spinach was one of my favorite leafy greens. I'd loved spinach since childhood, so when I adopted a raw food diet, spinach became my staple salad green next to lettuce. I heard that spinach contained notable amounts of important minerals like iron and calcium, so I thought I was getting a decent amount of these minerals. Now, I love investigating and learning new things, so I started researching the nutrient content of my diet. It was then that I came across up-to-date scientific studies regarding oxalate. For those of you not familiar with this term, oxalate, also known as oxalic acid, is a substance found in certain foods that binds to minerals like calcium, iron, zinc, and magnesium, making them less available to the body. I learned that spinach was rich in oxalate, which means that much of the iron and calcium found in spinach is bound to oxalate, making these minerals less nutritionally usable by the human body. In addition to spinach, oxalate is also found in high quantities in Swiss chard, beet greens, parsley, and purslane. This does not necessarily mean that these foods are bad. They're just not a great source of iron, calcium, zinc, and magnesium, especially when they're raw. Here is a list of some high oxalate foods compared to some lower oxalate foods. As we can see, parsley, chives, purslane, spinach, and beet greens are much higher in oxalate than the other foods further down on the chart, like kale, cucumbers, and summer squash, which are much lower in oxalate. The good news is that not all vegetables are high in oxalate, and oxalate in one food will not inhibit mineral utilization from another food eaten at the same time. For example, if you eat spinach with kale, the oxalate from the spinach will not steal minerals from the kale. It's also good to know that oxalate does not deplete minerals that are already in the body. Now, getting back to my story, the bottom line is that after I learned all of this information about oxalate, I de-emphasized spinach as my main leafy green, which allowed for me to focus on lower oxalate greens to absorb more of these important minerals. Next, I would like to share some information about phytate, which is another substance found in certain plant foods that binds to calcium, iron, magnesium, and zinc, making these minerals less available to the body. It's mostly found in grains, nuts, and seeds, and certain other types of foods as well. Researchers have noted that in order to maximize our body's ability to utilize these minerals, it's important to focus on foods that are low in phytate. As you can see in this table, phytate is found in much greater amounts in certain nuts, seeds, and grains than in fruits and vegetables. The good news is that soaking and sprouting activates an enzyme called phytase in nuts, seeds, and grains, which breaks down phytate. Soaking may also decrease phytate through the leaching of phytate into the soak water. Here are a couple of examples. On this slide, we have some photos of lentils and almonds. Lentils are legumes and almonds are nuts, and both contain phytate. I soaked some lentils overnight and let them sprout for a day and a half. During this soaking and sprouting process, the enzyme phytase is activated, which breaks down phytate, allowing for the minerals like iron to be more available for use by our body. In the case of the almonds, just like the lentils, I soaked them overnight. And just like in the lentils, the soaking process helps to activate phytase to break down phytate, which helps the minerals to be more available for use by our body. Now, you may be asking yourself, how much of a difference does soaking and sprouting make in phytate content? This table shows the results of a study that compared the difference in iron availability between unsoaked, soaked, and sprouted sorghum grain. Now, I know that grains are controversial, so I'm not suggesting that one eat sorghum grain or any other type of grain. I'm just using this example to illustrate the difference in iron availability. As you can see, soaking and sprouting certainly appeared to make a significant difference, and other available research mirrors these findings. So, we have discussed some ways to maximize our intake of bioavailable minerals through making educated food choices, along with employing food preparation methods like soaking and sprouting when appropriate. Next, I would like to spend a little time talking about vitamin C. Vitamin C is mostly known for antioxidant function and for the role it plays in bone, blood vessel, and skin health. But a lesser-known function of vitamin C is its role in helping to make the iron in plant foods more absorbable. In this way, it helps overcome the effects of phytate and other inhibitors. Many raw foods are excellent sources of vitamin C, and combining them in the same meal with foods high in iron can help to increase iron absorption. A great example would be making a fruit smoothie that includes vitamin C-rich fruits such as oranges or strawberries, along with iron-rich greens. Additionally, a number of foods that are rich in iron are also rich in vitamin C. Here's a table with some examples. Not surprisingly, we have some leafy greens, and as you can see, even a number of berries. And an additional strategy for more iron absorption would be to squeeze lemon juice onto leafy greens, such as in this salad. Lemon can also make a flavorful addition to salad dressings. Moving onward, our second potential raw food pitfall is thinking that you need cooked foods for certain nutrients. There are a number of these, and some of the arguments can be quite compelling, which is why we address this topic here today. Some good examples include lycopene and beta-carotene, among others. In this presentation, we'll take a quick look at beta-carotene. We cover the others in our Mastering Raw Food Nutrition online class, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So, what is beta-carotene? It's an antioxidant that is orange in color that is important for people eating a plant-based diet because it's a precursor to vitamin A. There's been a lot of talk in the raw food and vegan community about the importance of cooking vegetables such as carrots to absorb enough beta-carotene. A number of well-known vegan doctors and luminaries promote this idea based on research. However, this is only part of the picture, and we think that it's really important to have a clear view of what the research and clinical data actually indicate. So let's take a look at a particular study that's been cited as evidence for what we'll call the cooking for beta-carotene hypothesis. In this study, there were two groups of people. One group was given cooked pureed carrots, and the other was given raw chopped carrots. The outcome was that 65% of the beta-carotene in the cooked pureed carrots was absorbed, and 41% of the beta-carotene in the raw chopped carrots was absorbed. It's thought that both pureeing and cooking individually increase the bioavailability, aka absorption, of beta-carotene. In this study, two variables that affect beta-carotene bioavailability were present. Is this a fair study? It's important to test one variable at a time. Having more than one variable can influence the outcome of the study. If I was to redesign this study, I would compare the absorption of beta-carotene from cooked pureed carrots and raw pureed carrots. Another possible study would be to compare cooked carrots and raw carrots without pureeing either. Let's take a look at the reality of the situation. Even though this study was flawed, let's for the moment give the researchers the benefit of the doubt and assume that one can absorb more beta-carotene from cooked foods than from raw foods. Now, I'm not taking that position. I'm just making an assumption to illustrate my next point. Even if beta-carotene may be better absorbed from cooked foods versus raw foods, how much beta-carotene do people eating cooked food and raw food diets actually consume? Let's compare the beta-carotene content of a sample raw food menu to a sample standard Western menu and a sample whole food vegan menu, all with similar numbers of calories. Here is a sample raw vegan menu plan. For breakfast, we have a cantaloupe and then 2 peaches for a mid-morning snack. For lunch, we have a smoothie with oranges, bananas, mangoes, and kale. For dinner, we have a salad with romaine lettuce, cauliflower, and zucchini with a tomato dressing made from fresh and sun-dried tomatoes, dates, and chia seeds, along with a handful of almonds for a snack. We have over 57,000 micrograms of beta-carotene on this menu. Now, since this is an all-raw menu, if 41.4% of the beta-carotene is absorbed, then we have almost 24,000 micrograms of beta-carotene absorbed. That's a significant amount. Next, we have a standard Western menu example for the purposes of comparison. For breakfast, we have a bagel with cream cheese, a glass of orange juice, and a cup of coffee. For lunch, we have a ham and cheese sandwich with lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise, along with a small bag of chips and a can of diet soda. The mid-afternoon snack is a candy bar. For dinner, we have meat and potatoes, mixed vegetables, a small tossed salad with Thousand Island dressing, a glass of milk, and ice cream for dessert. The beta-carotene on this menu was mostly found in the cooked mixed vegetables. There was 31 micrograms of beta-carotene on this menu plan. Since the source of the beta-carotene was cooked, then 65.1% of the 31 micrograms is 20.2 micrograms of beta-carotene absorbed from this menu. Next, we have a vegan menu example. For breakfast, we have oatmeal with soy milk and an apple. For lunch, we have a cup of vegetable soup with a hummus and pita bread sandwich with tomato and romaine lettuce. And for a snack, we have 5 figs and some almonds. For dinner, we have black beans and brown rice with steamed kale, along with a salad containing lettuce, bok choy, carrot, tomato, and cucumber. There's almost 30,000 micrograms of beta-carotene on this menu, some from cooked food and some from raw food. So if we apply the math for percentage of beta-carotene absorbed from cooked and raw foods, we find that 16,541 micrograms of beta-carotene is absorbed from this menu. So to reiterate, we calculated that we can expect almost 24,000 micrograms of beta-carotene to be absorbed from the raw menu, about 20 micrograms to be absorbed from the standard Western menu, and over 16,500 micrograms to be absorbed from the vegan menu plan. Given what we have seen here, the amount of beta-carotene on the menu plan is just as important, if not more important, than the percentage of beta-carotene absorbed. Because if the beta-carotene isn't there to begin with, percent absorbed has little value. Generally, produce-centered raw food diets provide more beta-carotene than other dietary approaches. Since raw food enthusiasts who focus their diet on fruits and vegetables tend to eat larger quantities of these nutrient-dense foods than people on other types of dietary approaches, they tend to consume more beta-carotene. So that even though they may be absorbing less as a percentage than the other plans, they actually end up getting more beta-carotene overall. And as you can see here, the raw food menu plan shows the highest amount of beta-carotene absorbed.
While Dr. Karen presented a quite compelling case that raw foodists who make fruits and vegetables staples in their diets can get an abundant amount of beta-carotene, let's actually take things a bit further. Laboratory testing can measure what is actually in your body. So if somebody does not consume enough of an essential nutrient, there's not going to be very much of it in your body. Also, if you do consume enough of it, but you can't absorb it, in other words, it's not bioavailable, you may not have much in your body that way either. Now, looking at lab results of people who have been eating raw vegan diets for many years is something that I'm quite familiar with. Oftentimes, interpreting lab results can get a bit complex. And to get an accurate assessment of the real picture, it takes a lot more knowledge than just looking at the reference ranges and seeing where you fall, depending on the situation. Sometimes the reference ranges for healthy raw food vegans are quite a bit different than for the general population. Sometimes, for example, raw foodists get worried that they're out of range for something when in fact they're extra healthy. Other times, though, people take this idea too far, and they think that none of the reference ranges matter for them if they're eating a raw diet. This can be a big mistake also, because they can have a major problem staring them in the face, but not even realizing it. When we need to fall in the so-called normal ranges and when we may not need to, or when we may want to have different parameters or fall in a different range, is a pretty extensive discussion beyond the scope of this webinar. In other words, lab values are only most useful when they are interpreted appropriately, depending again upon the situation. Fortunately, what I'm about to show you is pretty straightforward. So in late November of 2016, Dr. Karen and I had a comprehensive lab testing panel done, and we've done many in the past and we'll do many again in the future. We tested lots of different things, and this is just one half of a several-page report, and one of those things that we tested, as you can see here highlighted, is beta-carotene. Now, for about 3 decades now, we have both consumed a diet that's about 90% raw, focused on fruits and vegetables. Over the past several years, we consume steamed vegetables about 1 time per month, including a few carrots. Other than that, I personally do not consume carrots with much regularity or consistency at all. So let's take a look at my beta-carotene level. As we can see here, 3 to 91 micrograms per deciliter is the reference range that this lab established. So here we are. We need a drum roll. Let's see how I did. My lab value is 90, whereas the reference range is 3 to 91. So I am at the very high end of the reference range. That's not too bad for somebody who doesn't eat cooked carrots or cooked vegetables with any regularity, who, according to some, is supposed to be deficient in beta-carotene. I'm way up at a good, solid level, and I was happy to see that. Not that I was too worried, but it's nice when lab work can confirm that you're on the right track. So that's actually part of its value. Now, moving on to Dr. Karen's results, we went in at the same time and, measured a number of things, and I whited these out because we're not going to get too complicated and look at the other results, although it is tempting because I love this stuff. So she also got her beta-carotene measured. We measured all of the same things. And if a lab ever sees a result that's out of the ordinary or they think might be an error, they will report, as we see here, results verified by repeat analysis. So why did they say that, and what were Dr. Karen's results? Well, let's take a look here. 370. Whereas the reference range, again, is 3 to 91. So Dr. Karen's beta-carotene score is over 4 times higher than the high end of the reference range. She is literally off the chart. Now, like I mentioned, I don't consume carrots with much regularity or consistency, but Dr. Karen does typically put a couple of shredded raw carrots in her salad each evening. Not pureed, but shredded in like big shredder chunks. So in other words, the primary difference in beta-carotene intake between Dr. Karen and myself is her intake of beta-carotene from raw carrots. And it's those raw carrots that allow her to have an off-the-chart level of beta-carotene in her body. So much for the cooking for beta-carotene hypothesis, at least in this example. But I'm going to suggest that we're not alone, and this is not an isolated incident. Many people don't continue with the healthiest diet possible over the long term because of misinformation. And this comes in two basic forms. Number one, without the best information, you can't make the best choices. And if you make enough suboptimal choices, you put several weak links in the way of your health program. Or sometimes even one major suboptimal choice can be the major weak link in your program. And these things can oftentimes make the difference between achieving your goals or doing things that are not going to achieve your goals, or sometimes even be detrimental to your health. There's a second way that misinformation can come into play, and I've seen this more and more over the years, and that's where somebody is actually doing well on their health program and they're feeling great and it's really working for them. But someone they know or someone they're influenced by comes along and convinces them that there's something wrong with the approach they're taking, or maybe a certain aspect of that approach. So then what they do is they change to something not as healthy, and oftentimes they notice they don't feel as good, but they can't get past this new information. So in this beta-carotene example, let's just say hypothetically that someone feels their absolute best eating 100% raw diet. They've been at it for years, they sleep well, their athletic performance is well, their cognitive abilities are excellent, they feel great, everything's good, but somebody comes along and says, you need to eat cooked food to get beta-carotene, and when they start to do that, they don't feel their best. Now, let me just give a disclaimer. We don't eat 100% raw all the time, and we're okay with that. We found the mix that works best for us, all things considered. I'm just giving this example where somebody does feel their best at 100% raw, yet someone convinces them they better cook their vegetables to get enough beta-carotene. So then they start doing that, then they don't feel as good. And for some people, that can lead to eating denser cooked food, and then they start to get into processed foods. And for people like that, they're better off sticking with the straight and narrow. So in this case, misinformation may have led them off the healthiest track. On the one hand, they know what they need to do to feel their best because they were doing it previously, but they have this block of misinformation preventing them from doing so. We don't want this to happen to any of you. We are committed to providing the most accurate information in a way that's easy to understand and encouraging, no matter where you are on the spectrum of health and no matter how far you would like to take it. Being armed with accurate information is one of the best defenses against falling off track. So what if, for example, instead of the person I gave, what if someone came up to Dr. Karen and told her that she was deficient in beta-carotene because she didn't eat enough cooked vegetables? Do we think that would deter her? Well, obviously not, because she knows the science and she knows what her results say. What if someone came up to me and told me that because I don't consume fish or fish oil or take special algae supplements, that I am deficient in the long-chain omega-3 fat known as DHA? I would have a similar response to Dr. Karen with beta-carotene. I know the science behind it. I've tested lots of patients and I know my own results, and I would not be able to get off track because I know what I'm doing, and I have an extreme amount of confidence in it from many different perspectives that all add up to the same place. This brings us to pitfall number 3, trying to figure it all out on your own. Now, on the one hand, it's hard to figure everything out yourself, especially in today's world with all of the conflicting information out there. While on the other hand, no one approach necessarily has all of the answers. When you follow one particular approach, you may only be getting part of the whole picture, which means there can be things outside of that paradigm that could make a real difference in your health that you would miss because you wouldn't be open to it if you think that one approach provides all the answers. Now, there are certain parameters that need to be in place for excellent health. But from our perspective, within that framework, there is plenty of room for individual variation. In our curriculum, we examine a variety of approaches to help people find what works best for them based on their individual needs. In other words, our goal is to give you the tools that you need to be able to have confidence in your diet in a way that helps you be as healthy as you would like to be. Today we've covered just a tiny little piece of what we have available for you to learn. In our previous Science of Raw Food Nutrition curriculum that we taught in person, we had to pack a lot of information into each day to make the best use of our students' time because they were away from home. The students loved the class, but we noticed consistently there wasn't always enough time for questions and answers and interaction with us. Even though we were in the room with them, most of the time was spent with us giving the presentations. And we had to take lunch breaks and bathroom breaks and finishing on time to let people go do their other activities into account. And there never seemed to be enough time for questions and answers. And also because there was so much information each day, that didn't let all the information sink in order for the students to be able to think about questions that they wanted to ask us. The good news here is that our new, updated, revised, expanded, new and improved online curriculum doesn't suffer from these constraints. We're offering this class online now, and it's called Mastering Raw Food Nutrition. It covers the span of 12 months, and it begins on August 30th of 2017. The time commitment is about 2 to 3 hours per week. So 2 hours per week, you will watch professional quality videos similar to what you see here on this webinar. You can watch these videos on your own schedule at any time you would like, as many times as you would like. Each time new videos are released, they stay there for the entire course, so you can always go back and review. We also include a very comprehensive set of notes, including charts and graphs that you see in the videos. These notes are not just a transcript of our spoken voice put into paragraph form. They're very well thought out. They took us a lot of time to put together, and they have bullet points and, again, the charts and graphs and everything you need in there in order to be able to follow along with the videos. So when you're watching the videos, you don't have to try to write everything down as fast as possible. Most of what's in the videos is there in the notes, so you can just follow along and then add a few additions as you go. These notes are also useful as lifetime reference material. Throughout the course of the year, we physically mail our students 4 separate notebooks, and that constitutes about 900 pages worth of information, as well as all of the references that we used in the scientific literature to put these notes together. In addition to that, we have live, direct interaction with us 3 to 4 times per month in conference calls that will be held at a few different times on Tuesdays for this coming year. This can really make all the difference, because if you just get all of the content and go through it yourself, oftentimes in these self-paced courses, people don't actually keep things up. But when you have access to us and your opportunity to ask questions and hear comments about that week's interaction or that week's material is coming up, you're so much more likely to keep up with things. There's other courses out there, they have you do all the reading and they collect the fee. And on paper, it may look like those courses offer more hours than we do, so therefore they're a better value. But our information is condensed down to make the best use of your time. So these near weekly conference calls really help keep people on track, and it creates a lot of interaction with us. You meet in small groups with your fellow students, and that is very helpful. We also have a Facebook group for people who wish to get to know each other and have a little bit of extra interaction. Dr. Karen and I post some extra content in the Facebook group, oftentimes that comes up in the conference calls, and sometimes we even give some fun extra credit assignments where we'll have students go out and do some things, all designed to help learn the course content. A couple of months ago, we sent a survey out to our current Mastering Raw Food Nutrition online students, and we've gotten some great feedback. Trent from Arizona says, Drs. Rick and Karen are an absolute wealth of knowledge. Their clinical and research experience is very beneficial during the course. The course itself is laid out nicely so topics can build upon each other yet still have variety. The weekly conference calls were just as valuable as the content. These calls allowed us students to ask questions and collectively learn from each other. I know one thing for sure, I would not have the confidence I do now to educate and inspire others if it wasn't for this course. Thank you, Drs. Rick and Karen. We talked before about listening to one source versus trying to figure it all out on your own. Another way of looking at a similar concept is this idea of exposure versus cohesion. So on the one hand, in our curriculum, you will be exposed to many different ideas and many different perspectives. However, because you'll have such a solid foundation to plug all of that into, you'll learn how to integrate the various pieces of the puzzle into a comprehensive whole instead of being left confused. Now, because there's 2 of us and we both have extensive knowledge and background and education in this, and we've done some independent research, we provide a lot of perspective. But because we're a married couple and we're both really into this stuff and we talk about it all the time, that allows everything to come together cohesively. So admittedly, we're pretty nerdy and we're actually proud of that. We love research and we love intellectual pursuits. And because we both have the same kind of background, including our doctoral degrees, there really is a great synergy that we have that we can bring to our students. Another current student, Anne-Marie from Paris, says, I find very helpful to have the point of view of doctors who are really impartial in their opinions and who explain things with scientific studies and fact, not just philosophic thoughts, and who do not sell anything. I feel very lucky to be able to ask any questions each week and to always receive a good response. I learn a lot. I understand much more now, even though I studied biology and have read a lot of books about raw food before the class. I hope there will be a second year for us to enter even deeper into the science of raw food. Thanks to you, Karen and Rick Dina. And she said elsewhere on the survey that I love my weekly videos. So to summarize, you get 100 hours worth of very solid video content. That can be equivalent to many hundreds, if not thousands of hours of reading and watching videos and trying to figure all of this out yourself. It is condensed down to make the best use of your time. We have those comprehensive notebooks that you saw a few slides ago, about 900 pages worth that you get that go along with the videos and are useful as lifetime reference material. Throughout the course, there's roughly 50 hours worth of interactive, we'll call it classroom discussion that you access through the computer or over the phone, where you get direct interaction with us in small groups. We also make recordings of all of those calls, and all of the recordings are available for everybody to listen to. Even if you can't make a call that you normally make, let's say 1 week you're busy during that time, you can enter your questions in advance. Then we will answer those during the call, and then you can listen to the recording afterwards. So in other words, we are there for you regularly throughout the course, interacting with us, getting clarification, hearing from your fellow students, and really allowing all of the information to sink in and make a lot of sense so that can empower you to stay on the healthiest path possible. We also have the Facebook group where you can interact with your fellow students and get some extra interaction and extra information from us. We also have an educator component of the course. As many of you have discovered, when you start eating differently than the rest of the population, you automatically become an educator because people see what you're doing and they have questions for you. We go over how to answer various questions that come up in a way that creates rapport instead of conflict, because emotional and psychological considerations are important for health also. Then for those of you who wish to make this education of other people a bit more formal or even go about it professionally, we have PowerPoint presentations that we give you that you can go out and use to teach other people. So the content of all of this is very, very solid, and many students have just been amazed at how much they learn in a short period of time. Going back to the theme of our webinar here is that when you have such a thorough and solid, comprehensive understanding of plant-based and raw food nutrition, it is so much more likely that you will stay on track, because when the misinformation comes along, often by people who are very well-meaning, that's not going to throw you off track. You'll be too well educated to be susceptible to that type of misinformation. And having confidence in what you're doing and knowing that it works and knowing that you're on the right track gives so much peace of mind. And that part of it is just so invaluable for keeping things up over the long term. Our student Rita from Portugal, we had a few quotes here that were really long. We're just going to share one of them with you as well as a couple of the shorter ones to keep things moving. So Rita says, "The Mastering Raw Food Nutrition and Educator course online has been a great learning experience. Starting from nutrition basics, further developing to subjects specifically related with raw food nutrition, and even expanding to some lifestyle aspects not directly related with nutrition but extremely important for optimal health. This course has exceeded my expectations week after week. With a very complete set of materials, video and audio classes, comprehensive sets of notes, question and answer session recordings, and the excellent teaching skills of Drs. Rick and Karen Dina. The information is very easily assimilated and is accessible to anyone with no nutrition-related background. Having a scientific background, my usual need to find scientific evidence to support facts has been fully met with this very solid, scientifically based course. In addition, my nerdy curiosity regarding the further details on the topics lectured has always been satisfied by Drs. Rick and Karen Dina, who very nicely answer all of my questions in the weekly question and answer sessions. Despite the large range of topics covered, the information is concise, very accurate, and truthful to the references, highlighting the trends in the literature when contradictory results are present. In addition, by sharing their personal experience as raw foodists as well as their clinical experience, Drs. Dina help me see how things we learn in theory come down into practice. Everything makes sense. I have attended to each online class with much enthusiasm. I understand the fundamentals and am 100% confident about the knowledge I have acquired along these months. While before the start of the course I had little knowledge about nutrition, now I'm able to explain and discuss many aspects of nutrition and health-related issues. This learning experience has empowered me to take well-educated decisions that will benefit my health, as well as help those who are interested in optimizing their health." And Rita is earning her PhD in environmental science, and she's studying how microorganisms can be used to clean up pollution on Earth. So when we spoke to her about a year ago prior to the class, we were so excited to hear about that, and we're really honored to have her as a student. So again, she's got a real solid interest in science from earning her PhD, and she found this information very valuable. Eva in Israel is a low-fat raw vegan coach. She said about the class, "I'm lucky to have found the teachers I hoped for. They are thorough and coherent. I find much value in their scientific knowledge that is mind-blowing, and also they are happy to teach, and that makes learning fun. Thank you, Drs. Rick and Karen, for this valuable course. I will definitely make it as a stepping stone in my professional development as a natural health consultant and coach." Our student Cynthia said, "I have been practicing a raw food lifestyle since 1998 when I did an internship at the Tree of Life with Dr. Gabriel Cousins. I really appreciate Dr. Rick and Karen's scientific approach to the subject of raw food nutrition and have appreciated learning the scientific basis of why this way of living is so beneficial." So Cynthia's been at this for quite some time, since 1998, and she was already very knowledgeable about raw food nutrition before the class. She said in another part of the survey that she has learned a lot, and the information has very much solidified why this way of living, as she said, is so beneficial. So she's been very happy with the course. And Cynthia is somebody else who has a real biology degree, and she's actually a real field biologist, a scientist who goes out to natural settings and studies wildlife. So we always appreciate when the scientists appreciate the validity with which we teach. Now, having said that, we realize that most of our students do not have a science background, and that's no problem at all. We make it easy for everybody to understand. Gail in Florida said, "The content alone is invaluable. No price can be put on this course because it represents their life's work dedicated to living and teaching that you can sustain a raw food lifestyle. You are not just getting a course, you are getting their lives. They have taken their medical knowledge, background, and experience and have simply put it on paper, as well as in videos and in the conference calls." So we appreciate Gail's comments there. And we have so many other great testimonials from sending our survey out from our current students that you can get access to at rawfoodeducation.com under the Course Testimonials tab. We'll mention just a couple of other quick ones here before we wrap up. Susan in Italy says, "This course has provided me with a real understanding of metabolism. I feel my feet on a firm ground of understanding of what I am doing and what I would be doing in eating any sort of diet." And Jill in the UK said, "I've been really impressed with the course, learned a huge amount, and enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm not a raw vegan currently, but I'm certainly eating more raw now." So these two testimonials speak to that no matter where you are on the spectrum of diet and health, our course provides support and encouragement by giving you accurate information in an encouraging, easy to understand manner that allows you to connect with real information that you can use to start to take the next steps on your health journey and be wherever you want to be about that and feel confident in it. You'll be receiving an email shortly titled, "Want to take your raw food knowledge to the next level?" And if you're interested in learning more about how this course can support your desire to achieve your health goals, we invite you to respond to this email, where you can click on a link to set up a time to speak with us directly, either on the phone or via Skype. This way we can answer any further questions you may have about the class and help determine if mastering raw food nutrition is a good fit for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy to have had the opportunity to bring this information to you so you can break through some of these hurdles and achieve your best level of health. Thanks again for watching, and we wish you the best of health.